What's up, YouTube? Jeremy Weber coming at you today. We're going to dive into the three fundamentals, or maybe four, but definitely three. The fundamental things that you need to understand about blockchain technology when it comes to thinking about how to apply it to build and monetize your personal brand. So before we dive in, I got to remind you, if you don't mind, do us a huge favor. If you're enjoying the content, please like, subscribe, all the things we got to do to play the game with the algorithms and hopefully reach more people with this content. So again, if you're enjoying it, all we ask is do those couple things. Helps us reach more people. So let's dive into this. And I'm going to just kind of free flow with this a little bit today, to be totally honest with you guys. I've been on this journey for, several months now on how to apply blockchain technology, how to think about it when it comes to using that technology to support our clients in their efforts to build and monetize their personal brand. And so naturally, I have been down every rabbit hole, spent many, many hours, and we will be coming, out with more and more tactical pieces, right, on, specifically how to use it to support book launches or your membership program or other aspects of kind of your personal brand. So those will be coming, but it kind of became apparent to me that hey, there's some kind of foundational concepts, right? Some pretty important kind of mental, let's say, models or just kind of understandings that I have, latched onto, frankly, over these many, many, months of just learning. And so I was like, hey, before we get too deep into kind of talking about, key applications in these use cases, which are critical, I actually want to kind of just share some of the big mental breakthroughs I've had from learning from others that have helped me kind of go from putting blockchain and Web3 and crypto and all this stuff, like this new technology, in a box of it's just cryptocurrency or it's just artwork, digital artwork you can buy or like whatever, right? From just thinking about it as these common use cases to, oh no, okay, this is actually more like a fundamental underlying technology that is unlocking certain capabilities that have truly never existed before. So again, today I'm going to go through those three at least. Maybe there's more. We'll see where this goes. Kind of things that that have been helpful for me to just establish some foundational knowledge on capabilities, and then we take those capabilities and can apply them to really any aspect of your business. And that's the power of this. Is my goal is what I'm learning, try to share it in a way that's easy for you to wrap your head around, so you can just be empowered to kind of what I like to call like connect the dots between this new stuff that's coming, what you're already doing, and how do we make all this coexist. And so the first thing I'm going to share is that if you don't know much about blockchain, okay, and I'm not going to give you like formal definitions here, and I'm not going to, like there's plenty of research online, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. But at the core of it is you need to understand that what we are talking about when we talk about blockchain technology, which again is the underlying technology that is powering NFTs and cryptocurrency and many different kind of fundamental aspects of the metaverse, et cetera, right? What we're talking about, and this is kind of a key number one, is what we're talking about is the ability to digitally store information on the internet, right? So digitally, in a way that you can trust that, hey, what I've stored, I know that it's what I've stored. I know what I put there is what I put there. I know who owns that, or who last did something is who owns it, or who last did something, right? Typically, prior to blockchain, it was a lot of like easy to copy paste, duplicate information, like whatever. I didn't know, right, with certainty because of how that information was stored. But with this new technology, which is based on what's called like a distributed ledger and all this stuff that I'm not going to get into, but just think about it this way: is we've got all these computers all over the internet, right, that are all working together to basically validate and help us know that like this information that's stored is stored in a way that we know with confidence that it is what it is, right? I no longer need that physical, tangible thing, right? Because it's stored across multiple computers in a very redundant way where we all validate, etc. So I've got confidence. And just to kind of like prove the point here, is that one of the biggest, right, early applications of this technology is around money, cryptocurrency, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, et cetera. Like, the list goes on and on. But it's around cryptocurrency. So digital money, digital currency. And if you think about, hey, like money's pretty important, and like this idea of digitally storing money, like, I don't trust this, but we're starting to see more and more big time, institutions, other types of big investors, right? Big players are showing more and more confidence in the ability for this underlying technology to do a good job of storing information digitally in a way where we would even associate some of that data to be represented as money, right? Like you own one Bitcoin or you own a fraction of a Bitcoin or whatever, right? And I know with confidence that you own it and you sell it to me. So transfer of ownership to me, right? So at the core of it is just the ability to store information digitally with confidence in a trustless way. And that is now basically unlocking a lot of new interesting capabilities. So transitioning into kind of the next key learning here. And I would actually lump this into it, right? But I'll just say that was number one, right? Is that we're storing information digitally in a way that people can trust. Number two is that it's not one blockchain, right? So it's blockchain technology, but you need to understand that there are multiple different blockchains, right? Again, it's just a way to store information digitally. So there's multiple blockchains out there that are really like different projects or different companies that are using this technology to bring to market some really cool kind of capabilities, whatever it is, right? And so the Bitcoin, right, blockchain is one, right? So just know that there's multiple blockchains, right? So this maybe is number two, right? You say there's multiple blockchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, Avalanche, etc. Multiple blockchains that do different things. Some are similar, some are very different. There's this idea of L1 or layer one blockchains, right? L1, different L1s, ones. And then there's these different L2s, right? Which are, think of these as using similar capabilities, but they are kind of micro blockchains that are running on top of these massive kind of like underlying blockchains. So this would be the second thing, is just to understand is that it's one fundamental technology, blockchain technology. That technology is being leveraged in different ways, to power different types of companies, frankly, and online applications and capabilities, right? So that's the second biggest thing. The third thing, and I don't know, frankly, where I'm going with this diagram, so we'll see how it builds up. The third thing here, and I'll see if I can zoom out a little bit. So the third thing is that when you have the ability to store information digitally in a way that you actually can trust that, hey, this computer, right? These computers just did it, right? I didn't have to have a bunch of people and a bunch of paper and a bunch of stuff to kind of, ensure that it's safe and I know that you own this or whatever. When you can use technology and digitally kind of store and retrieve information quickly with confidence, it then opens up this idea of saying like, hey, do all these middle people that were huge institutions, right? Huge kind of industries, do we need them or do we need them as much, right? And so that's where we see kind of these typical, we'll call them banks, right? right? That would be one industry, right? We're saying, hey, decentralized finance, DeFi, right? So banks, right, usually be like, hey, they got the money, right? They're backing it all. I can trust that they're going to give me my money when I need it. So I need them there and I'm going to pay them, a percentage of all these transactions, right? Their fees to basically ensure that my money is safe. Well, hey, we're starting to see that maybe, and it's still early days, right? I'm be the first one to say this, right? But we're starting to see that, hey, if we can store some of this digitally using this new technology, like do the banks have to do as much, right? Or can we scale them back a little bit? They still have a role to play, but they have to do too much, right? So as we're starting to see some disruption in the banking system. And we're starting to see, and so if you take that same concept, right? Let's say the deed to your house, right? It's like, hey, well, there's the register of deeds, right? I'm just giving you a few, deeds, right? Can't read that, deeds. So that's another one where it's like, hey, there's deeds here. I've go to the register of deeds to register transfer of ownership, etc. Well, maybe I can digitally store that now. And I know with confidence that Jeremy Weber owns that deed and it shows I'm the owner of this property. And if so-and-so buys it, I transfer that deed to them and that's recorded to the blockchain. And so why am I physically going to this office and now having to request that they record stuff and request that I get a copy and request that we transfer and all this stuff. So bottom line is you can take kind of this medical records as the number one, like, again, the list goes on. It's tons of different industries and applications. One that I want to talk about just kind of here is that I think applies to this community, right, is social. I'm going to just do social media, right? We're starting to see some pretty cool kind of foundational blockchain based social media platforms coming to market. It's still really early days, so just don't get, don't go anywhere too soon, right? But basically what's happening is like, hey, rather than, and I'll do a deeper dive on this later, but rather than my followers and my content and whether my ability to get my content in front of my followers on any platform, rather than there being some centralized company that gets to own that and gets to monetize that through the ad element of the platform and gets to kind of dictate what I can do and what I can't do, right? With this new technology, we're now shifting to an idea of saying, well, hey, I am one person. I have one set of followers. It's not my TikTok followers or my Instagram followers or my LinkedIn followers. It's one set of followers that follow me, right? I get full control over directly communicating with them with all my content, right? And then we create different like layers or different ways that those followers can see and consume information I put out. So you still have this idea of kind of different apps, but we're taking the content I put out, we're taking the followers that are interested in me and I own them as an individual versus some centralized company. So again, sky's the limit. There's tons of cool stuff. I understand a fraction of it. So just know that that is that. So fourth, right, and this is the last one I'm going to leave you with, is this idea that at the end of the day, what we are seeing shift, right, and this is a big one, what we are seeing shift is that rather than a centralized entity, I don't care if it's a big business or just a small business, it doesn't really matter, but a centralized entity kind of retaining all of the ownership, right, of something and saying like, hey, I have a product to sell or a service to sell, like you want to buy it, right? That rather than that being kind of the one-way transaction of somebody's buying something for me, I'm giving it to them and we're good, is that this new blockchain technology allows us to basically take the idea of shares, like fractionalized ownership of a company, right? And we can use the technology to create fractionalized ownership of a whole company, technically, right? If you want to let people buy into, these layer ones, right? L1s, L2s, right? You can own kind of tokens, right? You can own those tokens, and which are kind of like fractional ownership of how that blockchain is being used to power certain apps, decentralized social media apps, decentralized finance apps, whatever, right? And obviously, the more successful those kind of blockchain-based applications are, the more demand, more usage, then the value of your ownership in it goes up, right? What's also cool is that it doesn't have to be ownership at kind of these foundational layers. You as a business owner can choose to kind of leverage this technology to create fractionalized ownership of your product or service offerings. And so what this does, we've seen it with book launches, we've seen it with kind of membership programs, we've seen it with lots of different things. But the bottom line is saying, like, how do I align the incentives? So let's say this is the buyer, right? This is the seller, right? These are buyers. This is getting kind of ugly, right? Currently, we have this split, right? And then maybe back here, these are investors, other people that have a stake, right? They're kind of siloed now. But basically in this new model, right, through just fungible tokens, like tokens in general, or non-fungible tokens, NFTs, right? We're basically aligning incentives across all of these three groups to where we say, hey, when you buy this NFT, right, you actually have a small ownership stake in whatever is associated with that NFT. It could be a piece of artwork, which is what we mostly think of, but I think kind of the bigger opportunities are NFTs that unlock access to more kind of like utility, like a book, or access to events, or access to coaching, access to back-end content, access to tangible things that you're using right now, but currently people do not have a way to have ownership in it. So what's cool is that when everybody's on the same team saying like, hey, I believe in what you're selling. We like this person. I'm buying it, right? We're all good. But now that I have an ownership stake in it, because I actually have bought the NFT, which unlocks a fractional ownership in whatever this thing is, right? I now have an additional incentive to promote, right? And tell more people, hey, this is really good. You need to come in and get some of the action too, right? And so naturally, the people that are part of your community, let's call it, are now incentivized to activate and promote more to drive demand for the kind of NFT or kind of the capabilities behind the NFT. And then that naturally drives up the value of their ownership stake, and obviously the value that you hold and the value that these people hold. Everybody's got ownership still, right? So we're all working together to drive this. Now, obviously, if what you're selling is crap, then you're going to have a problem here. But if it's not crap and it's good, right, everybody should believe in it, one, and then be like, hey, you know what? Because we believe in you and you were an early adopter, a buyer of this, we want your help promoting, obviously, but we actually want to give you a piece of the action too. You now have a fractional ownership stake in this thing that we're all collectively building and trying to grow. And I think the last thing I want to say on this is a lot of people talk about how this new blockchain and kind of all these new capabilities, it's all about community. And I agree with that to a certain extent. But what I would say is that pre-Web3, pre any of all this like new technology, right? We needed community to kind of pull people in, to warm them up, to hopefully kind of get them to invest and buy into whatever we're selling, to help us get better and support each other, to help advocate, right? So we needed community, period. And I would argue that community and kind of activating the community, keeping them engaged, right? That was kind of fundamental, period, right? So community has been key to driving growth, right? It continues to be key to driving growth. What's really cool and what has never been really capable before is basically rewarding the community and saying like, look, thank you, right? We're actually creating some new mechanisms that allow you to have fractional ownership in what we're all building, right? Because we love you, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And so you know what? We want to take care of you. We want you to have a piece of the action. So let's all make this better for the collective community and the people we can now go out and serve in a bigger way, because we're all kind of aligned and taking care of each other through some of this underlying capability. So again, pulling it all back, like before, if you want to say, hey, I want to give you ownership of something, like how do you even do that, right? Is that like a IPO? Is it, how do we write up a bunch of legal paperwork? I wouldn't even know how to give thousands of people fractional ownership of something, let alone create the ability for them to easily sell that ownership to somebody else on secondary markets. Like that's why it never happened, because it was like impossible, or financially impossible, right? It wasn't feasible. This new technology, the ability to store and transfer ownership, and underlying technology is unlocking our ability to do this. And we're just scratching the surface on the different applications or ways that this technology can be used to basically, frankly, transform many different aspects of how we do business today. So anyway, those are 4 key things. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Like, again, those are 4 big kind of unlocks for me, like big mental breakthroughs that just help me kind of ground myself in some core capabilities. And now I think about those 4 things as I just kind of cross-reference what can be done with kind of what's already being done, what we do all day, every day. So I hope that helps you as well. Again, if you found this valuable, please like, share, kind of subscribe, all the things. And remember, by no means am I giving you any financial advice. Consult with a financial advisor before you invest in anything like the wild world of cryptocurrency and all this stuff. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, guys.